All right. Welcome in, everyone, to another edition, the College Football Show. We come your way Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, except for our late night show, which is pretty random. So that depends on your selection for the week. Otherwise, it's 4 p.m. Eastern time, except for that one late night call-in show. We got Zach Smith standing by. We're going to bring him in right now to talk some college football. Of course, Amazon link is in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. Let's get down to the college football business of the day. Zach Smith. Hey, Zach, what's going on?
What's going on, Mark?
What is going on? Good to talk to you. Of course, always good to see you. We had a couple minutes to talk before we started to record, and so you're running around 100 miles an hour. So with kids ranging from 4 to 15, I didn't realize.
Yeah, I got every school covered. High school, middle school, elementary school, preschool, all of them checked off.
Well done. Well done. Well, believe it or not, and I think you get this, you're going to look back on it someday and be kind of like, even though it was kind of driving me crazy at times, I miss it. So,
for sure.
That's where I'm at.
I know
no
it.
doubt. All right. You know what's driving me crazy right now, Zach, is how they select Hall of Fame coaches in college football. This is the stupidest thing imaginable, and I rail against this every time it comes up. So it came up with Mike Leach the other day, and this has nothing to do with Mike Leach, God rest his soul, and his contributions to the game. If you have a committee of football experts, you trust them to make a judgment on all the different criteria, all the metrics, all the stats, the championships, everything, and just to weigh it all. Not have this ridiculous 60% winning percentage. First of all, that's not very impressive. No. Number two, why is it there? And so now they voted this week to lower to 59.5 just to allow Mike Leach in. And then when the next guy rolls around that's at 59.2, it's going to take them 10 years to figure out that they're going to lower it to 50. Get rid of the stupid rule and just make logical judgments.
Yeah, case by case. Why not go case by case? And I was talking to Chris, my co-host, about this. It's almost like we're not going to compare apples to apples. Like Mike Leach winning at Texas Tech and Washington State and Mississippi State. How are we going to compare his winning percentage to Ryan Day's, who took over at Ohio State, where you kind of wake up and win 9 games? It's like, so Ryan Day will be eligible, but Mike Leach won't, because Ryan's a better coach. Maybe he is, but the winning percentage has nothing to do with it. Like, what school were you at?
Yeah, you have to make those adjustments about everybody else anyway. Why don't you? I got a good one for you. Howard Schnellenberger saved the Miami football program. They were this close to saying, you know what, we're done with football. And he saves the program. They win a national championship. He goes into Louisville a few years later. They had lost 5 consecutive losing seasons for Louisville. Within 2 years, he's beating Alabama in the Fiesta Bowl, winning 11 games. He starts up another program at FIU, and obviously anytime you start up a program, your record's going to suck for like 5 years, and he's way below 60%, but no, can't go to the Hall of Fame.
I'm with you. You just have to have competent human beings make a judgment call. It's not that hard, right? It's like in baseball saying a guy needs 150 home runs minimally. It's like, what if he's a single hitter? Why does he need home runs?
Yeah. Oh man. Get me started on that. And your guy, Chris there, obviously he's a huge baseball guy.
Oh yeah.
And I've said this a number of times. I remember when Griffey was headed toward 500 home runs and he was basically a shell of himself. People were saying he needs to get to 500 home runs and be a Hall of Famer. Well, he was the great player before. Now he's just accumulating numbers.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
Makes no sense. All right. Here's another thing that makes no sense. I put out this tweet just to stir some people up the other day. So I simply was asking this question, Zach. What is the record of the series between Ohio State and Michigan since you were born? That's all I'm asking.
Right.
And I know what I'm doing. Obviously, everybody that responds, unless they're 7 years old or they're 95, is going to respond in Ohio State's favor. So I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so I would categorize the Michigan responses this way. About a third of the people said we're very, very gracious Michigan fans, just simply stated, very class in a class manner. You know, we're down 23-17 or whatever the number was since I was born. And that was the end of it. And if they
Yeah.
wanted to go on about the last 4 years or whatever, great.
Yeah, have at it.
You can post whatever you want, but you answered the question. Great. About a third of the people did nothing but whine and complain and make excuses and say all sorts of things. About a third, at least a third of these Michigan fans, Zach, just flat out lied. They just would say, "Oh, we're up 28-22." No, that's not correct. You're stating lies.
Right, right.
It's just hilarious. So if all we're going to do, and I understand, hey, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm touting the last 4 years and I'm touting the all-time series record. Absolutely. They have every right to do that. But I think one of the reasons why you do what you do and I do what I do and other people like us is because there's context given to all this stuff. If all we're going to do is keep score, then none of us need to talk about it because all you have to do is look at the standings. But there's a lot of context to this series. Like, I'll just throw one out. Michigan's won the most Big Ten championships. But since Ohio State joined the Big Ten, Ohio State's won more Big Ten championships. And last I checked, it's kind of tough to win a conference championship when you're not in the conference.
Yeah, really hard. It's actually impossible. You can't do it.
So, there's a little context there.
Absolutely.
I've thrown this one out too. It's 62-52 in the all-time series. And you can't tell me that, and again, Michigan fan, brag all you want. I would as well. But you can't tell me that you wouldn't have a different perspective on it. Let's say if Michigan had won the first 62 in a row and Ohio State's won the last 52 in a row, like that wouldn't change your perception of what's going on. Yeah, obviously there's context here.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a day and age where like Princeton was winning national championships. Like, I don't know. I always find it tough. Like, when did college football? When did not when did it count? Because I don't want to discredit anyone that played back in those days.
Yeah.
But like, what should we really be looking at here? Is it like around the Woody Hayes era? Like, how far back should we go? And Chris's point is always, once they started letting black players play, that's when college football changed. And so we should say, what is the record since that happened? Because it's a different game now.
Zach, I used the same point. 75% of the NFL players are black.
Right.
Therefore, the majority of great college football players, same thing.
Yep.
And, to play with, less than the full stack of the most talented players, and there's obviously not an exact date you can go to and say that's when the sport was segregated and became desegregated. So, I've thrown 1970 out there because by that time we had reached that point. And again, I'm not discrediting anyone who wants to bring up all-time numbers by any stretch. To your point, from the very first year of college football, hey, those guys were given effort and the games counted, they kept score, they marked it down. So it matters to some degree. But, when you couldn't throw a forward pass until 1914,
right. It's like,
it's a different sport. They're playing rugby.
It absolutely was a different sport.
So, and if you're going to look it up, folks, actually the forward pass is well before 1914, but I've researched this a little bit. This is funny, Zach, because between the time that they instituted the forward pass, it was like 1906 and 1914 for like the first 8 to 10 years. If you threw an incompletion, you gave up the football. And you had to throw the ball from like 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and the ball had to go like past 20 yards. There were all these rules that made everybody scared to throw the ball because the penalties were so harsh that nobody wanted to throw the ball.
Right. So, it's basically just a Hail Mary. That's the only time you would do it.
Exactly. So it's just funny stuff. Getting to the here and now, we got 5-star offensive tackle Felix Ojo was on campus. He said good things about the Buckeyes and his visits. A ton of 5 stars this first weekend of June. Do you get a feeling like, not that this program needed any help in recruiting, but the monkey's off Ryan Day's back, he can sell it even more?
Yeah. I mean, I think Let's see. I only one time. So I was a part of 3 national championships. 2 of them I was a GA, so I didn't go out recruiting. I wasn't really recruiting. I helped, but like I didn't have my own recruits. But in 2014, when we won it all, everything feels different. Like when you walk in a high school, kids are looking like they see your logo. They're like, "Oh, it's Ohio State," because you just won the Natty, and it just feels the response you get from high school, from recruits, from coaches, administrators in buildings. It's just totally different. So you get a little pep in your step. You get a little momentum. At least you hope so. I mean, if you can't get momentum off the backs of a national championship, you're probably not a very good recruiter.
Hey, Zach, since you mentioned your days coaching, let's keep it there because your expertise, obviously, especially at wide receiver, and we know what the deal is at Ohio State. So we know about Jeremiah Smith, obviously, probably the best in the game. Ryan Williams may have something to say about it this year. Cornell Tate really stepped up. He's a premier player. They're going to need that third guy, maybe a fourth guy. A lot of impressive names: Mylan Graham, Brandon Ennis. Any particular guys that you like as being guys that might break out?
Brandon Ennis is the one. I mean, I loved his high school tape. He's one of the few. I don't really follow recruiting, but he's one of the few. Him and Jeremiah are the 2 players that I actually broke down their high school game film, and I think he's really good. And he's kind of perfect for what Ryan Day does. I mean, losing a Mecca is a big loss, but it's going to be pretty seamless. I know Brandon Ennis had a great spring, and they really those young receivers did too. Mylan Graham impressed, but the only I don't know that it's going to be an issue this year, but Brian Hartline generally doesn't play outside of his top 3. He doesn't rotate guys. Like Mylan Graham's probably not going to see a lot of snaps. And so I don't know how important they'll be barring an injury, because Brian Hartline kind of rides his top 3 receivers every snap. And that slot role is going to be interesting. You go back to years like where they had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, but Jackson Smith and Jigba as a younger player led the team in receiving. Like Ryan loves throwing the football to the slot, and that's where Ennis is going to be featured. So I think he's one that I think is going to have a big year, kind of a breakout season.
Got Zach Smith on the line, Menace to Sports. Head on over there, check out Zach and Chris and what they do each and every day. It's right here on YouTube at noon Eastern, your favorite audio platform as well, of course. Matt Patricia, when he was brought onto the staff, I don't know what the response was with your viewers. It wasn't the best here. I think people looked at him too much as a head coach and his failings at Detroit rather than the rest of it. But we're hearing good things about the way the players are relating to him and what he's brought to the table thus far.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. I think the biggest question mark that I had, because I don't know Matt Patricia, I've never met him. I don't really know anything other than he was a really smart football coach that thrived under Belichick and failed as a head coach. And I don't know why failing as a head coach matters when he's going to be a coordinator, not the head coach. But people love to talk about how he failed in Detroit. They really love to talk about it. But I was worried about the personalities. I mean, you have a guy like Tim Walton, who was kind of the co-DC, has been phenomenal in recruiting. I know he probably wanted that bump to the coordinator job. Larry Johnson's been one of the best D-line coaches in college football history. I mean, they have some big personalities in that room, and you add in a guy like Matt Patricia, that can go one of 2 ways. And it was a rave review. I mean, talking to guys inside the Woody, guys on that defensive staff, they're like, he's phenomenal to work with, work for, however you want to classify it. It's been rave reviews. And then further to your point, the players seem to be just love him. And he's so smart. I don't know if you saw, he was holding a meeting with like whatever his degree is, like the aerospace engineering. He was meeting with kids that were taking that major and teaching them like aeronautical engineering. And I'm like, this has got to be the smartest football coach in the history of football coaches.
You didn't do that, Zach?
No,
none of that for you.
No, absolutely not.
Zach Smith here, Menace to Sports. If you have any comments or questions, folks, super chat, and we'll get them right to the screen and pass them on to Zach and or myself. Staying with the defensive side of the ball, I found this interesting because Jim Knowles was interviewed. I want to give credit to where it's due. It might have been an ESPN reporter, and this was on ESPN, I believe, about a month ago. Talked about the whole situation that unraveled, not going to the the festivities and the whole deal and the negotiations and how that rubbed him the wrong way. And then obviously he made his decision. All right, past that, and I'm sure you guys had some great discussions on your show about how that went down and the perception of all that. But I'm going to get more to the football going forward. And he made a lot of statements about, how they looked at Penn State as the Ohio State DC. And he said he was brutally honest with, saying, we ignored him. We focused on, I'm guessing, Tyler Warren and some certain guys that we would be obvious to know. And then he was very, very plain with Drew Aller. We could tell you were going to do this, this, and that. You need to not do this and that. So with this transition, with him being as good as he is, how much does that take a bit of a chess piece out of Ohio State's off their side of the table and move it to Penn State?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, hiring Matt Patricia softened the blow. And I know this spring they stayed with Jim Knowles' defensive scheme and philosophy, and Matt Patricia learned it and adopted it. And I'm sure he'll have some developments or some wrinkles to put in. But I think it's less about Ohio State losing a great coach as it is what you just mentioned. Like that asset walking in the door in Happy Valley, being able to give them scouting reports, like every way that he can help Penn State elevate, having been one of their top ops, is massive. And we did it in 2007 when I was at Florida. We got beat by Michigan in the Capital One Bowl. And that offseason, we hired Vance Bedford, a longtime college football secondary coach. And he came in and sat there and told us everything he saw in his scouting report, like our receivers, their stances, everything. And it was a game changer. Then we won the national championship in 2008, the next year. So it's really valuable because think about it. I mean, you spend a ton of time studying them and you're trying to find competitive advantages. Then you walk in the door and you're on the same team. It's like, hey, you want to see our competitive advantages over you? Here they are. Let's fix them.
Zach, since you brought that up, and I love college football history, and of course, that's right in my wheelhouse, watching these games and everything, and you bring up that down year in 2007 for Florida, lost 4 games, lost the shootout to Michigan, great bowl game, in between the national championships. What happened there? How would you explain that?
We lost a ton on defense, and we had a bunch of young players that thought they won the national championship in 2006, but they didn't play. So they kind of were just riding that high horse, and they got humbled. They really got humbled. And it was, we lacked secondary talent. And that next year you look in 2008, then we have Joe Hayden, Janoris Jenkins, then we reload, and those kids kind of went through that adversity and oh yeah, we have to work really hard to do that. We thought we were just going to get it handed to us. And it was also a year where Tebow won the Heisman. I mean, we were really good offensively. Our defense was just not good.
Zach Smith here, Menace to Sports, breaking down the Buckeyes in college football. And so let's broaden it out here, looking at what's transpired in Destin, Florida over the last week. You had Greg Sankey and the rest of the SEC coaches down there making all sorts of quips about we want to play the Big Ten, and Eli Drinkwitz, of all people, is doing a great job at Missouri. There's no question about that. But when he talks about, we need to get back to where we are winning national championships, I'm thinking, until proven otherwise, you really have nothing to do with that.
Right.
But your thoughts about, first of all, a possible SEC Big Ten series?
I mean, I think it's great. I think to the Big Ten's point, they're not going to want to do that on top of 9 conference games. I mean, you figure that just having that extra conference game over the SEC immediately gives half of your conference another loss. And we talked about it today. It's not just those teams that maybe go from, 10-2 to 9-3 and don't make the playoffs. It's even deeper than that. I mean, you get to those middle of the conference teams that might catch a loss because they have to play Ohio State in that 9th conference game. They're going to be ranked lower. So the whole conference gets knocked down in rankings. And then you go to strength of schedule and you're like, oh, but Iowa's only 21st in the country. It's like, what if they played the Citadel instead of USC and didn't catch that loss? Now they're 15th and your strength of schedule looks stronger. So I just think we're comparing, I love the idea. I think it would be great. But I think either the Big Ten needs to drop to 8 games or the SEC needs to bump to 9 games so we can just have equal playing field when we evaluate these teams at the end of the year for postseason play.
And just about everyone wants to play 2 cupcakes. And so if you're playing 9 conference games and you're playing 1 difficult game, look at somebody like Iowa. They're not going to drop this Iowa State series, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
They've been playing that forever. So they're not going to drop that game and then play Florida,
Right.
Tennessee, and then only have 1 breather entire non-conference schedule. So it's kind of difficult. On the flip side of that, Zach, I don't know if you've looked at these schedules extensively this year in the Big Ten. The Big Ten specifically kind of irks me that Penn State goes out there and plays no one. Maryland, Indiana, like no one.
That's kind of what happened with Indiana last year, right? Didn't play anybody but Ohio State, lost to Ohio State, made the playoffs. It's just like, what are we doing?
And I'm obviously talking about the non-conference schedule because they can't control the conference schedule. But when somebody like Penn State is playing Villanova and Rhode Island in a MAC school or whatever it is, it's just, and I know that happened with Ohio State last year. There is a backstory with the Washington game. They joined the Big Ten. It gets canceled. So it's a bit of a different deal for them. But I just have little respect for these ADs that sign off on these schedules at a place like Penn State and they played nobody.
Yeah, and it just makes it tough, right? Like if Penn State and Ohio State finish with the same record, or even, God forbid, Ohio State has 1 more loss and it's to Texas, how can you compare the 2 teams? They played Texas. Like Penn State played no one out of conference. There needs to be some uniformity, I think. There needs to be some rules on how it works. And it's mind-blowing to me that we still are allowing human error to go out and select these teams when every other sport, they have rules. Like the NFL, it's not like some committee gets together and decides who goes to the playoffs. Like it's very easy to figure out.
It can be done. Yeah. It's tougher because there's so many teams and they don't play each other. But I worked on it. I'm no genius. It can be done. It can be done more objectively. No doubt about it. What would your playoff look like?
I mean, I'm of the opinion that the group of 5 should never be allowed in. They're never going to win they might win a game, but they're not going to win a national championship. Boise State is never going to win the whole thing. So my opinion is if you put them in, auto bid the top group of 5 conference champion, you're giving someone an easier path to win it all. And I don't think that's fair. You look at Penn State came out the gate, played SMU, Boise State, and they find themselves in the Final Four. Much different path than Ohio State having to play Tennessee. I mean, the gauntlet that they had to go to get to even the Final Four. So I don't like the group of 5 teams getting in, and I don't think that an auto bid to a conference champion is necessary, especially in the Big 12. The Big 12 is so far worse than the ACC, which is far worse than the Big 10 and SEC. I think it's crazy to auto bid. We could have auto bid Iowa State in the playoffs had they beat Arizona State. That's nuts over an SEC team or another Big 10 team. So I don't really have a perfect solution. I like the auto bids for the Big 10 and SEC. And I think maybe you give the ACC champ. And if you have to put the Big 12 champ in just to keep it a Power 4, that's good. And then you have some at-large bids. And unfortunately, you're going to need people to decide who that is.
So, Zach, you're good with the 4 guaranteed for the SEC and the Big Ten, and then whatever happens after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I think, and I don't know that they need to expand. I think I get it. It's more money. That's why they want to do it. But if you kept it at 12 teams and you gave me 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, both conference champions, you're at 10 now. You get 2 at large and stay at 12.
Wow, you were hard on the ACC and the Big 12.
It's just different. It's a different brand of football. I mean, it really is. You look at a team like so I guess Miami would have been that 3rd ACC team that goes out and chokes against Syracuse. I mean, it's just, I don't see the same quality of football being played. The ACC closer to the Big Ten and SEC, but the Big 12 is awful.
Well, I think what the ACC has is that they've got 3 schools that have the potential, if things are going right, Clemson, Miami, Florida State, that recruit in that area of the country, and they could. We've seen it before. The Big 12, once Oklahoma and Texas left, it's like this league's never. Now, if you just enjoy watching close football games that are 45-42 every week,
right?
Have at it. It's.
I mean, I love the fireworks on 4th of July. Like, I'll watch a bunch of scoring. It doesn't mean that any of those teams are going to beat Alabama, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of tough to put together. All right, Zach, we appreciate you being here. And again, we'll encourage everyone that I got to figure everybody's aware. Menace to Sports. It's at noon, Monday through Friday, right here on YouTube and your favorite audio platform. Zach, it's always good to see you. Appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent stuff from Zach Smith, of course. We always appreciate him breaking things down. Good intel out of Zach, who's obviously got a wealth of knowledge. We got James Coleman standing by, joining us from, oh man, James is all over the place with his Sports Den Live and fifth quarter college football. So that's a good discussion with James Coleman, who played for Florida State from 2002 to 2005 under Bobby Bowden. So we got James Coleman. He's a great listen. If you're not aware, he used to join me every week on the Florida State show over on the FSU channel. So we got James Coleman checking in at 4:30 Eastern. In the meantime, your comments and questions, we'll take them front and center. Please, no personal attacks. I don't know what's going on there. Let's just, trash talk. I think I put that in the guidelines. Tukey G caught me on the guidelines the other day. Yeah. YouTube presented me with the opportunity to build some guidelines, which I had never done before. So I thought, what the heck? We'll get this lined up here. And yes, trash talking. I know it's an oxymoron. Respectful trash talking is certainly encouraged. We also have got our Iowa show lined up, as we do each and every Tuesday, with Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. That's coming your way at 5:30 Eastern and 4:30 Central. So please lock it in with us on the Iowa show. We have a Nebraska clip to play during that show that I'd like to respond to. So we've got a mystery clip from the Nebraska college football coverage out there somewhere. I wonder where, that I'd like to play during the Iowa show to get a response. Like to get a response out of the Iowa faithful right there. We got our On the Move show with Leanne Herring. That's coming up Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern. Got to join us for that because we take your calls as well. Absolutely. And while we're at it, I will pop the call-in line in the chat right here. So if anyone wants to give us a ring, please do so. Like and subscribe. There shouldn't be anyone listening or watching me right now or on the replay that's not subscribed here at the Voice of College Football. It does not cost you a penny. Also, we've had some nice contributions here on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. I got to go back and certainly look those over and give those fine folks recognition who have contributed on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, MarkRogersTV. That is the best place to contribute, actually. We enjoy the super chats with your comments and questions, of course. But, yeah, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That way we bypass YouTube, and we have a ridiculous lineup here at the Voice of College Football on Tuesdays at this point. Check this out. I believe I counted 13 shows. But we will get to that later because we've got a special guest chiming in, our buddy James Coleman from Sports Den Live, fifth quarter college football. James, how you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, man, what's going on, man? How's everything going with you?
Good. How you been?
Busy. This year's been interesting, man. Love it, but rather be busy than broke.
That's a good word right there for all of us. Yeah, get to work, folks. If you're too broke, then get to work. Get busy. James, before we dive into the football, there are other important matters that you get to on a pretty regular basis. So I got your Twitter handle up here, and just want to know what do you got going from a charity standpoint, or anything that anyone can contribute to here?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, this will be my 6th year doing my community give back weekend through the MFTK Foundation. You can if you want more information, you can go to mftkfoundation.com or check my socials. But we kick off next weekend for Father's Day weekend. Me, Pat Watkins, who I played with, also played against him at Lincoln High School. He played for the Cowboys. Amari Gaynor, who a little bit younger than us, but Amari played at Florida State, played at North Carolina, currently with the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to do a camp actually in the neighborhood I grew up in Tallahassee, so at Lincoln High School. So that should be kind of cool. And then my birthday, I turned 41 this year, and July 26th, I like to give kids book bags. So $36 a book bag. They get a book bag, they get a week's worth of groceries to kick off the school. We got Orlando, Tampa, Tallahassee, and Jacksonville this year. And I'll be sending some bags to Atlanta, hopefully, if we raise the funds. But it was about $100,000. We're about 20. We've got 25,000 raised so far. We'll get to that number. We always do. But it's a fun thing. A lot of people complain about a lot of stuff, but we can all do something. We can all get busy doing something.
No doubt about that, and appreciate all that you do there. 41. So you're safely in the 40s.
I can no longer deny or say I'm 39 or whatever. I'm in my 40s now. So
all right, I would love to say that myself. All right, let's talk some ball here. Something sticks. A lot of things that you've said over the years, and everyone. We used to do a Florida State show with James every week, and I miss those because I used to learn a lot. And I don't know that I've had anyone who's been on here consistently that I've learned more from than James. And one thing that you used to size up the Florida State football team, you could just see these guys coming off the bus or coming out of the locker room for spring practice, and you knew that, okay, this is not a Florida State looking football team. This doesn't look like vintage when I was on the field. They just don't look the part. And then, Mike Norvell got there, and after a couple of years, you liked what you saw. And even before you saw them play, you kind of saw that. Now they're coming off a 2-win season at spring practice. Did you like what you saw from a strength and conditioning standpoint?
Yeah, but it was still inconclusive for this spring. A lot of the guys that they brought in just are battling injuries. Like, they were banged up. So you can see where it can be. But what I learned last year, it's all about the will of the players. And I just couldn't fathom, like, being out there like that. It's hard for me to relate to how those guys were last year, because football is a game that you play for 3 hours on a Saturday, right? 60 total minutes of ball, but 3 hours spread around. You go through what they say is 20 hours a week, but it's more than that. In the sun, in the South, you've got about 100 hours over the summer working out, and who knows what else over. It's a lot of work to get beat on, to go and quit. And one of the things that I've never seen before is a team just absolutely quit. Even during Bobby's down years, there were games where they were more competitive than not. And you just saw them not be able to do effectively what Mike Norvell wants to do. So that's attributed to the coaching. It's also attributed to the coaching, attributed to the buy-in, and because of buy-in and not having the proper players. Now, what I do believe is you have a guy that's a little bit more like Jordan Travis and Thomas Castellanos. He's not Jordan Travis, but he's closer to Jordan Travis in the fact that you have to account for the quarterback in the running game, and you have to account for the quarterback's legs in the passing game. Now, you didn't have to. DJU, you hope that you would have that, but DJU just decided he wasn't going to run. He was just going to be a statue back there, and that severely limited the capabilities of that offense. It also showed there were some glaring weaknesses with the offense, like the offensive line in particular. J. Trav made up for a lot of different things with his legs. So now you bring in Gus, you bring in different wide receiver coach, different kind of similar philosophy, a little bit shifted, and it makes you wonder if things could be better. But you know, I can promise you, I can confidently say Florida State will win more than 2 games. But can I confidently say that they'll be ACC champions? No, I'm not willing to put that kind of bread up there. But it looked better. But I think when I told you, the first time I told you, they were so bad that when they got better, it was so much different than what I had seen. They're still within that realm of they could be an 8-win ball club if they do things the right way. But that's going to take a lot on Mike Norvell, the motivator, than Mike Norvell, the X's and O's guy.
Got old number 36 here. Big game James Coleman, fullback at Florida State under Bobby Bowden, 2002 to 05. You can catch him on Sports Den Live, fifth quarter college football, Den Media Groups, where you're going to find him here on YouTube. So just look that up. And when's your next live show?
Tomorrow, probably around 8 o'clock, shifting. We got the high school I help out with tons of Division I athletes. Actually, we got a couple, like you got Michigan fans, I believe, that so they'll love my young. If you're a Michigan fan, there's something that you should know. One of your commits and Brody Jennings. Unfortunately, his father passed a couple days ago. So y'all should probably go out there and just, love up on that young man again. But he's such an amazing talent. But we got a lot of elite athletes that are coming through Mandarin right now. One that is probably, if you had a high school show, you would want his highlights on it. Was a kid named Bryson Wright. Mark, I ain't never. Part of the reason why I'm so damn busy is because of Bryson. I've never seen anything like Bryson Wright before, NFL, college, or high school. He's probably what you would consider a phenom.
In what way? Like what about him?
He's 6'4". He's 6'4", 210 pounds, runs a 4.5, and he's 14. He started his first varsity game at 13 years old. He is literally a man amongst boys, and he is a boy. Now he's hitting puberty because you can see his man muscles coming in, and it's scarier now because I'm like, I'll send you a video clip of the spring game of this play that he did, and it's just like it makes you want to throw something because it makes no sense that he was able to do that. Like I've never the names that I would say that I've seen is just you can't say that. Like I told you, Andre Johnson, Calvin Johnson. It's tough for me to say it, but I'll say this: his nickname is B5, and he came in and everybody called him B5, 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 and I'm like, listen, man, I'm a grown man. I'm not calling a child a nickname that hasn't made a play. And then he did something. I was like, good night. And he's like my son's entire Pop Warner team. They don't want to be like anybody in the NFL or anybody in college. They all want to be like B5. And it's just the strangest thing. But like I said, you got to see it. This is something it's just something you have to like see. And it's like Jeremiah Smith would be the if I had to say somebody coming out of high school, Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith would probably be the closest. Closest thing. And even Jeremiah, JJ is incredible. And I don't even want to say that about him. But it's like, yeah.
Wow. All right. We'll be looking out for him. No doubt. I wanted to get back to Norvell because one of the last things you said about him was from a motivational standpoint and not X's and O's. And obviously this guy's a great offensive mind, but he's got another great offensive mind in Gus Malzahn. And we're seeing this more in college football where these guys don't want to be head coaches and they're like, forget that. I just want to draw up X's and O's and work with kids. Gus Malzahn, Chip Kelly, Ryan Hafley with Jeff Hafley with Boston College moved on to the NFL, gave up a head coaching spot. So anyway, you got two good offensive minds together that have accomplished some things. How do you think that relationship's going to work?
Well, I think the cool part is that they go all the way back to when Mike first got his feet wet in college coaching. Gus was the athletic director, was the OC. Mike was the quarterback coach. And the funny thing is that a lot of people who we thought Florida State was going to go after, and they did, it just didn't work out. He got a head coaching job, and Brendan Marion was the quarterback coach. Was the quarterback for them. I believe it was Tulsa during those days. And then you've got Gus that's gone to the different places where he's been at, and Mike's influence is very much so Gus Malzahn's. It's a run to throw type of offense. Now, what we've seen since Gus has been a head coach is a lot more running centric than it was when he was an offensive coordinator, when he had less things that he had to worry about and only the offense. So seeing Gus come back to this and there's a familiarity with them, Mike can be comfortable leaving that to him. Also, what we're seeing is that Gus probably has absolutely no desire to be a head coach on that level again. And the way the coordinators are getting paid, if Gus has the success that he believes he can have, then what you'll see is that he can make the money he was making as a head coach damn near as a coordinator with less stress. And I think that's actually going to be the new cheat code for a lot of universities is how do I keep my staff together and keep everybody happy and just pay people the right way. But I think that gives Mike the opportunity to be less involved in the day-to-day of the offense and more involved in the overall scheme of the team and being able to be that motivator, being able to be the overseer and oversight. Because there's only been one real example of a coach who is really, really good on one side of the ball and he focuses on it and wins championships consistently. Jimbo was able to do it, but Saban's the only one, and that's defense is different. Defense, you can dictate what your offense does, and that was with Saban. But even Saban took the next step when he brought Kirby in and allowed Kirby to be able to do what he needed to do. So most of the guys, the Bobby Bowdens of the world, even the Urban Meyers of the world, are CEO coaches. They coach the coaches or they manage the coaches, and they allow the coaches to be able to flourish and do what it is that they do. And that's kind of where Mike has to get to that level. But in that, it requires your coaches to really have faith in you as that guy. And we'll see, because when adversity hits, that's when the measuring contests start to happen. And I think that's what happened to Florida State last year. It was just nobody. It was a bunch of bad Chiefs and no Indians, to like pun intended, I guess, with the Seminoles. But like Mike's got to be able to come in and establish that.
A lot of good weapons that they acquired during the offseason, and obviously for a Florida State team, my goodness, they had no weapons to speak of last year, but Squirrel White was a really good player at Tennessee. Deuce Robinson is a guy that I don't know that's getting the attention nationally that maybe not that he deserves it like he's done anything great in college, but man, that guy's a matchup nightmare, and I think he could do some damage. Stephon Thompson on defense, who's played a lot of ball at Syracuse and Nebraska. So who do you like out of this bunch out of the transfer portal?
I'll tell you, the person I like the most is, I can't remember his name off the top. I just remember what he did to us in the bowl game a couple years ago is the Oklahoma running back.
Oh, Gavin Sawchuk.
Yeah. One thing that really makes these Mike Norvell offenses go is the zone read. So with the zone read, you got to have a running back that you fear. When Trey Benson was there, Trey Benson wasn't the greatest vision guy, but man, he was just whatever hole he saw, that was what he was running through, and somebody was going to pay for it. And then you got him, and you had a good mix. So I like the backfield, but if you've got this guy from Oklahoma, he's got really good vision, and I like the way he hits the hole. You mix that with Castellanos, that's a good 1-2 matchup. But what they didn't have was a guy who can consistently catch. That year, so like it didn't matter what the weapons were. Like if you throw the ball to somebody, every quarterback in Florida State had a problem throwing the ball to somebody and catching it. So if you got Squirrel Thomas, that's the guy that can take the top off of a defense. Hope that work. Hope that's there. along with Boggs, who's a freshman wide receiver from Cocoa, Florida, who's come in, looks like he's ready-made. And there's some other guy. Elijah Moore should be another guy that should be able to be some good guys that are there. But what Deuce Robinson gives you is the bailout. So Castellanos has two things we got to look at. We got to look at Boston College when he kind of came onto the scene by literally willing them, and they ran out of time on that. Florida State 13-0. I'm going to say Boston College more so ran out of time than they lost that game.
Well, you know what would have made that really interesting, not to cut you off, James, as you well remember, BC got a stop, and Florida State was going to punt back to Castellanos with about, 90 seconds left, 2 minutes left, and all they needed was a field goal, but there was like a face mask or something and personal foul in that end of the game. I wanted to see, I was looking for a dramatic finish there that I didn't get.
He was looking to give it to us. And, there was a lot of other factors, but at the end of the day, nobody thought the game was going to be that close. Also considering that Florida State beat the brakes off them the year before. Now, when you look at last year's team, Bill O'Brien wanted him to throw the ball more in a more pro-style system. And everybody gets on him. But if you really just go look at the box scores, there are games when he did really, really well. There are games when he did. He's 5'9". You got to move the pocket with a guy like that. You can't just put – as a guy who's 5'11", 6 foot himself, in a shotgun, when those guys are in their 2-point stances, they're still taller than you. So it's like you have to get on your tippy toes and identify. And I only had to identify half the line. Imagine having to see the whole field. So what benefits you in this situation when you're moving the pocket? You move the pocket, you got a guy like Squirrel, boom, he's going to take a corner, hopefully a safety with him. But then you got this 6 foot a million guy in Deuce Robinson that as long as it's a us or nobody ball, we're good. And I think that what Johnny Wilson was an us or nobody ball guy. That was a guy that bailed Jordan Travis out, made some tough catches, made some, he dropped some, but he also made some really clutch ones. And you just don't want him throwing the ball to the other team. So throw it to him. He's going to be he came out as a tight end more than anything else. So he's a bigger body guy that they're calling a wide receiver. His dad, Dominic, played when I was there. It wasn't no burner. So it's not like he's coming in. We expect him to just beat people on a 9 route. What we expect him to do is be able to move the chains and be a big intimidating body. And I think that's where that's why he'll be one of the more exciting guys on this team. So I'm looking forward to what they're going to do on offense. Defensively, I mean, I don't know Tony White's scheme well enough to truly say, here's who I'm looking for over there. But I do know this, and this isn't saying this is going to happen. It never works out this way. But I believe UCF's offense was the 15th ranked offense in the nation, right? And I know that Nebraska's defense was the 13th ranked defense in the nation, or flip that overall. If Florida State had the 15th ranked offense and the 13th ranked defense last year, you're talking about another ACC championship team. I know it doesn't work like that, but I do know we have some better pieces than what they had in Nebraska and at UCF. But I also know, but I do know we have a majority of those staffs that are over here. So I am interested to see how they make some of these pieces move and work. I know I was super excited about Shade Tree Jr. last year, and that didn't work. I was super excited about a lot of guys and that were more highly regarded, and they didn't work. Maybe it's time to get some guys who are a little bit grimier and need to go earn a paycheck, and I'm with that.
I'm just going to throw this out there. So sometimes, James, I'll just throw out a stat, a fact, something, and just let people respond to it. Miami's been in this conference for 21 seasons. They have no ACC championships, and it's pretty astonishing. I don't know that a lot of people outside of Florida State circles realize the dominance when you play in a conference for 33 years and you win 16 of the championships. Nobody's doing that Oklahoma did for about the same spell of time, a little bit less actually. They were like 14 out of 28, about 50%. But that is serious stuff right there.
It was Bobby's conference to lose for most of his tenure at Florida State. And even then, like when you think about some of the teams that have gone on to win the ACC, when Florida State hasn't, it's been someone like those teams will always be remembered at that school, right? Those teams wouldn't even get a day at Florida State. So Maryland and Ralph Friedgen, like I had to explain to my intern, I had to who he was. I'm like, Ralph Friedgen was a really good offensive mind at Maryland. They had a 110-win season. They won the ACC. When you think about NC State, I believe they won it one of the years. And that was with like Phillip Rivers, T.A. McClendon. I can't think of the wide receiver. Jericho Cotchery, Mario Williams, Tank, Manny Lawson. Basically, they had four guys who ended up being first-round draft picks on the D-line. They had a squad. They'll always be remembered. And Chuck Amato kind of knew the blueprint. When you're thinking about what Georgia Tech did and just completely turned the world, like put us in a time machine and brought back the wing T to power forward. Like, so he's winning because nobody knows how to stop a wing T because we forgot it existed. And then Virginia Tech, obviously with Beamer doing a really, really good job in the few times that he had it. But you go back and you hear those teams. And there have been some really good Miami teams in the last 21 seasons. For them to not be able to get it is absolutely crazy. And I know they don't like that. Like they pretend, oh, well, we're this. And especially last year. Last year really tripped me out because you had the best quarterback in college football. And you still you couldn't get it done then. So it's like eventually I think Miami's going to throw enough talent at it that, you know, maybe in 40 seasons they'll get one. But like right now it's just crazy. But you know, kind of tough. It reminds me like when I tell people about LeBron, they're like, "Oh, LeBron sucks. He's not that good. He's not this." They're like 50% of his seasons ended with him being in the finals. That's never been done before. Like very few people have ever done that. Like that's hard. That's not an easy accomplishment. So, but kudos to that. Everybody wants to win a national championship. People forget conference championships are hard to get as well. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Anybody in NBA history that's accomplished that was playing for the Celtics and they were playing like in a 12-team league. You know, you're Bill Russell. You're somebody like that. All right, James. These SEC coaches met fairly close to you in Destin, Florida last week, and there was all sorts of rhetoric coming out of those meetings about changing the playoff and matching up with the Big Ten and all sorts of things. How would you, before I get to maybe how you would tweak what's going on right now, if we started from scratch, how would you build the playoff? What would be your playoff format?
My playoff format would be similar to what it is right now. Conference, you win your conference. You chose your conference. And we've chose to call it a Power 4. Used to be Power 5, but we're going to pick the best teams in that. And we can go by rankings because I actually have no problem with Boise State having been where they were. But those guys are going to get the bye. And that's how I like it. And then from there, we're going to make this as parity basis because I have a firm belief in my heart. One, I think I've said this numerous times on your show. The SEC isn't the best football conference, top to bottom. The Big Ten is the best football conference, top to bottom.
People are loving you right now in this chat.
I'll stay in the ACC or give me the Big Ten. I don't want to play in the SEC. It has nothing to do with the talent. I can name you 6 games in the Big Ten as a football fan that 6 places I would love to go. I don't want to go. I'm sorry, as a history major, I'm not trying to do that. I don't want to go to Alabama. I'm terrified of Alabama. As a history major, Mississippi, I'm cool with that. Don't want to go there. Don't tell me how cold Columbus, Ohio is. My father lives there. I've been to Columbus, Ohio. It gets cold in December. November may hit or miss, but we play in Pittsburgh and we play in New York and Boston, all higher than anywhere where the Big Ten is at. So, and we play those games in November. I don't want to hear that. But I would much rather go. And now that you add Oregon, you've added USC, Ohio State, Penn State. I want to. I would love to go to Minnesota. Believe it or not, it's just teams there I would like to go see and like to play against. And they're closer to bigger cities, so I can fly into a bigger city. I can go get some real life and whatever. But my point is that I like the format where the buys are at neutral sites. I love the fact that you get, if you do make the playoff, though, you get an incentive by hosting another game. I do like that. I just don't want to see 4 SEC teams and 4 Big Ten teams. Mix it up. If you need 2 automatic qualifiers, I'll give you 2. I'll give those 2 conferences because I do believe they're better than the other conferences. I'll give them 2 automatic qualifiers. Everybody else got to earn it. And I don't like the fact that how we're doing, just the rankings are set up to make sure that there's going to be 5 SEC teams and 5 Big Ten teams that you should consider. So that's what I don't like. I would personally go back to the BCS format to pick where the teams are at. And I think that's a little bit better. But in a perfect world, there's only 50 teams nationally. Truthfully, if we're being honest, there's only 50 teams, and that's probably too many, but 50 teams that truly year in and year out have an opportunity to even play, should have an opportunity to play for a natty. Most of those come from 3 conferences, but you can pick them however you want to do it, and then go to an NFL type format. Then I'm cool with it. But I don't, Big Ten, if Florida State, Miami, Clemson aren't involved, if they earn it, because I say those 3 teams because one team was deserving. But typically, historically, if we take from the last 30 years, those 3 teams are in it in some capacity. Trying to think of my Big 12 brethren. Those guys are in the SEC now. So the ones who would normally be there in the SEC. There is no Pac-12. But like if those teams aren't in it, I don't want to hear about a national championship. And I think but if you took 50 schools and you just say, hey, here are the guys, we're going to split them in 2, and then have them in divisions, and then let those guys play and have at it, and then come up with your best 12 teams. That's what I would do. That'd be my perfect world. UConn not playing for a national championship. I'm sorry. You can love UConn football. Kirk Ferentz is a great coach. He's been around forever. He has absolutely no desire to play for to coach in a national championship game. And that's okay.
See, I don't disagree with you because we've had these arguments on the Iowa show that I do, because anytime you hear him talk, he's conference focused. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't stack up his program or his teams nationally. So I agree with you. But man, if you're going to go to 50, Iowa's been like a top 20 to 25 program under him.
Well, I'm just saying where he's at. He's satisfied with a 9 wins at Iowa is not going to make a fan base say, we need to fire him.
No.
Like right now, I'll use an example. Rival. Florida has fired. Miami fired Mark Richt for like being good enough just to get them, for pulling them up, because that's not championship caliber. That's what I mean more so by that. It's no knock on Iowa. I think he's done a great, again, it's in Iowa. I don't know what's in Iowa, but he's done a good job of making that program what it is though. But that's why I say them more so than anything else.
So James, you said a few things there that lead me to this. And before we let you go, because we haven't had a chance to talk about the ACC since a few things have been done. One is revenue distribution. So what I did, James, I posted a video and then I ran it by some people that should know. And they said, I actually did a fairly good job. And I didn't promote it as this is exact dollar for dollar. This is just maybe vaguely what it could be like. I basically took the TV ratings for the last 2 years and I did a breakdown of the percentage of the audience that's going to Florida State, that's going to Clemson, all the way down the list. And then I took the dollar figures that we know from the TV contract and I distributed the money based on that 60-40 model. And it widens it out quite a bit. Florida State's they're going to go from like 80 million, which would be the cumulative for 2 years, like 40 and 40 roughly, to that 80 is going to become like 130. Like it's going to stretch it out pretty well for them. Even in a 2-10 season, they were still drawing figures. So kind of what do you think of that whole deal? And is that going to be enough to hold the ACC together? Because if anything, they still negotiated a contract that makes it very easy for these schools to leave. Once we get to that point, the payout's not going to be that difficult to get out.
One of the things that I always said is it's never going to go to trial because discovery is an MFer. The one thing I learned about being sued and being in lawsuits is that what you learn in discovery is crazy. And it just kicks the can down the road for what the inevitability will be. The Big 12, if anybody is a cautionary tale, the Big 12 should be that. Texas raised the fuss about wanting to leave. And then the Big 12 made concessions by letting them have the Longhorn Network and some other different things for them to still end up going to the SEC. And I believe they were leveraging the Pac-12 in the beginning, but then they ended up going to the SEC. It's not about it's not about tradition of the ACC. It's about winners and losers, and who the guys who have done a better job of winning, not from a football perspective, but in negotiating the contracts. The ACC went from being a pioneer to being complacent. The SEC has kept the foot on the gas, and then the Big Ten, what they did was instead of staying in bed with ESPN, they went to the rival and the op, and they're in comparison. They're comparing notes, and it's about money. And as with the House settlement, with a lot of other different things that are coming on as far as NIL front, NIL probably shifting more to a revenue share as well as players basically becoming employees. You can't compete if the other schools have more money. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not about history. It's about capitalism and winning off the field. And everything that universities are designed to do. And I think I've said this to people on the show. I learned this when I went to Florida State. Florida State is not in competition. Actually, forget nationally. Florida State's in competition with one program, from the janitors to the football team to the math professors to everybody. It is in competition with beating Florida to become the flagship university for the state. There's no way Florida State will sit back and let Florida outdo them by $30 million in a TV contract without trying to exhaust every opportunity. And that's when, if you really step out of it and you look at it like that, as long as Florida's in the SEC and the SEC is getting the contract, Florida State will never be satisfied with being in the ACC because they will always have that. And what comes with it is Florida State's never ducked competition. Not saying Florida has, but I'm just saying we've never ducked it. So we won't leave without having that national rivalry that we have down south. So again, that's attractive to Fox as well as ESPN, ABC, who's had it. Same thing with the Florida game, which now ESPN completely owns it because of the SEC completely shifting over. But trust and believe, Fox would love to have it every other year, and that's why it was kind of like when people are like, "You guys aren't good." It's like, guys, no, it's a money thing, and TV deals with. That's why nobody cares about your boycotts, because marketing contracts on that level are 10-year, or 5 to 10 year deals. They're banking that you'll forget before anything else, and they're banking on a long term Florida State would be good. So, but that's what I think is going to end up happening. We'll kick this can down the road, and until the Big Ten does their renegotiation for their deal, and then you'll see Florida State slide in there. Or Maybe they'll fire the president of the ACC and they'll get a guy with some nuts that actually negotiate a good deal.
And the thing, as you well know, that accentuates this gap is, for the first time in the history of collegiate sports that I know of, these leagues did not say, basically, we're all in it together. We split the pie evenly, whether it's the NCAA basketball tournament, whatever it is, we just split it all. The Big Ten and the SEC, strong armed them and said, we're taking 29% each and you guys each get 16%. Like that's almost a 2-to-1. Like we're automatically taking, twice as much money as the Big 12 and the ACC. So that's going to even add on to that gap during the regular season.
And then when you're guaranteeing that more teams are getting in there, so that's more. Everybody does a bowl split. For the most part. So if I know out the gate I got a minimum of 4 teams making the college football playoff, I'm making more money than I'm going to make more money in the playoff picture. And working with the Gator Bowl, it throws everything else off. So now I got to take, like, just for example, this year, luckily, weird stuff happened, but we were going to have to take. We were considering taking a 5-7 SEC school in order to fill the obligation we had, because we thought they were going to suck up another team into the college football playoff, which really, really dilutes the bowl games, because we don't want that, but we still got a terrible bowl. We still got a less than optimal bowl game per TV ratings and per ticket sales. Ole Miss was not very happy that they had to come to Jacksonville. But like, it's just a lot of things that I like it. I'm a pro player. I actually enjoy football. So I enjoyed watching the college football playoff. It wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I don't want any more teams added to it. But what I don't want it to do is become the SEC Big Ten Challenge. We already have that in basketball. Make it during the football season. If you want to do your de facto, here's your crown them, whatever thing, a national champion has to be able to be well-versed, to be different teams with different philosophies, different terrains. That's what makes college football cool. Seeing that, is West Coast football better than Midwest football? Is Midwest football better than football in the South? Is Northeastern football better than West Coast? Because it's all kinds of different body types and builds, and that's what makes it beautiful. Styles make fights. It's almost like, again, if you like boxing, it's like, is the fast guy better than the big brawny guy, a big brawn guy? Who's going to do it? So, like, that's kind of where we got to get to. And NCAA needs to get a little bit more, get some nuts too, and either enforce or don't enforce. Or, the other conference committee, if I was the ACC commissioner, I'd have just told them that you can keep your money. If it's doing that way, we won't be involved in it, and we'll separate and do something else, which I think is really, if they don't rein it in, we're going to have the NCAA I don't think the NCAA will exist in 10 years, but I do believe that if they don't figure out a better way to do it, we'll have 2 competing entities in the fall, which, again, just gets us more football, but it's not necessarily what the fans want. Great
to see you, James. One last time, why don't you let people know where they can contribute to what you have going?
If you go to mftkfoundation.com, there's a donate now button. We switch it up because a lot of people like to use the debit cards, credit cards. It's Stripe. Everybody uses Stripe. You can go in there. You can donate all kinds of different things. For the book bag drive, each book bag, the kids get 9 weeks of school supplies, and they get a meal, and there's a football camp attached to it if they want to. It roughly comes out to $36 a bag, which is like my jersey number. No donation is too small. No donation is too big. It's a 501c3. Like I said, mftkfoundation.com. You can go also get the updates or follow me at BigGameJames_36. I will always have my pinned tweet be something that is going on with us in the community. So this first one, me and 2 other guys who all got an opportunity to make it to the NFL and make it to college. We're going to go up here and we're going to just spend some time with kids on Father's Day, and then get active. Looking forward to doing a lot of big things in the community through my foundation. I've been blessed with media that's been able to help finance a lot of this stuff, and we're gonna keep doing it until I can't do it no more.
Great to see you, James. Thanks for stopping by, man.
I appreciate you, Mark.
James Coleman, Florida State fullback during the Bobby Bowden heyday there, 02 to 05. Always great to hear from James. We've got our Iowa show coming up here at 5:30 Eastern and 4:30 Central. So check that out. And basically, we're rolling all day and all night here at the Voice of College Football, especially on Mondays and Tuesdays. Also Wednesdays, we've got a full slate of shows, 13 shows today and tonight. And again, you can follow me with Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm on the Hawkeye show that's coming up in just a few minutes on the Iowa channel. And then we'll be back here on Wednesday. The next time you're going to see me show up will be the Ohio State show at 11 a.m. Eastern time on the Buckeyes channel. Thanks for being here at the Voice of College Football. We got two great guests again on Wednesday. This is one of our aims, is to build this show and get it rolling. So you're going to get a lot of analysis from me, big topics from me. We're going to do all-time program rankings week. Next week, we're rolling through 15 different categories, ranking all the programs in college football top to bottom in all the conferences. But besides that, excellent guests here. We got Eric Scopel from 247 Sports Oregon on Wednesday, along with Marty Leap from Penn State Rivals. And again, if you're just joining us, James Coleman, Florida State Sports Den Media. And then we're led off by Zach Smith from Menace 2 Sports. So rewind and watch what you missed and join me on the Iowa show in just a few minutes. And we will see you then.